The Carolina Hurricanes recently released their 23-24 schedule. In this episode, we break down the schedule, stretches we're looking forward to, stretches we're not looking forward to, all in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Monday afternoon. And I'm joined by my co-host, Andrew Schnittker. How are you doing on this Monday afternoon, Andrew?
I'm doing well. I'm looking up through the Hurricane schedule is something that I look forward to every year. It's any favorite team really. I mean, for me with them, with the Chiefs, anytime you get that schedule, when the next year's games are going to be, it's always a fun time, at least for me, to kind of go through it and break it down. So I'm excited to do that today.
Yes, I am as well. And you mentioned this just before we hit record, and it's something that I think we should at least mention. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it was all but expected that the Hurricanes would make their trade to reacquire Tony DeAngelo yesterday, as that would have been the day they would have been able to do the trade. But it didn't happen as of recording as of 12:05 p.m. on July 10th. It has not happened yet. And Don Waddell had said in the press conference you were covering that trade was basically agreed on in principle. They just had to wait for it to happen or wait for the date. But it has not happened. I know a lot of folks are thinking the trade may have fell through or whatever. And we've said multiple times that this was a trade. If it doesn't happen, we're not going to be upset. But it does now feel like, oh, this hasn't happened yet, and it's definitely eyebrow raising because it was one that was almost guaranteed to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you would have thought that if, all the I's were dotted, all the T's crossed, they had the agreement, they were just waiting on the date to do it, that it would have been done yesterday. Now, it could still be done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could happen today. Maybe yesterday, I don't know, the flight, maybe Danny Briere went to the lake. Maybe Don Waddell went to the beach. It was the weekend. Who knows? But so it could get done today, or, I mean, something could have changed. The Hurricanes might have decided to wait to see what happens with their pursuit of Erik Karlsson, to see what happens with Brett Pesce, to see, or just decided not to do it. I don't know. I mean, I think it's unlikely that they just straight up decided not to do it, because I think it was something they wanted to do. I think it would be that they have something else that's impacting it. So I don't know. I could see them waiting on some of these other potential moves they might have in the hopper at this point.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was thinking when the day just kept going on and on and on, and nothing was coming out about it. Because I was fully prepared when we were getting the episode ready of talking about that trade, but it has not happened. And I do think you're right. I think that there may be something else that they're just kind of holding off on it, whether it be Pesce, whether it be Karlsson or whoever. I think that there could be something there that they're like, oh, hold on, Philly. Hold on. Let's see how this goes real quick, and then we'll get back to you. Because I think that, honestly, is probably the most likely. There's something that they could be able to, is a player they could be able to acquire that would just negate the need for them to trade for DeAngelo. Again, whether it be Karlsson or getting something worked out with Pesce, being able to keep him. I think that's probably what's going on.
Well, you think about if the biggest reason to get DeAngelo was so he could quarterback your second power play unit. If you get Erik Karlsson, then you've got Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson as your two power play quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of good there. It doesn't hurt to have depth. Those guys are both older, but DeAngelo, most of his value is going to come on the power play. We've talked about his limitations at even strength. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's plausible to me. Watch now. They'll do it as we're recording, and I am keeping an eye on things as usual. But
Yeah.
for now, Tony DeAngelo remains in the city of brotherly love.
Yes, for now, and we will continue to talk about that as time goes on. If something comes out where the trade has fallen through, we'll talk about it. If the trade goes through, we'll talk about that as well. But moving back onto your regularly scheduled programming of breaking down the upcoming schedule, and I just realized that the thing says 22-23, not 23-24. But yeah,
Numbers are hard.
yeah, no, numbers are really hard. But yeah, diving into this schedule, we're gonna mention the preseason. That kicks off on the 26th against Tampa Bay. You have back to backs on the 26th and 27th against Tampa, and then Florida. And then you have a TBD against Florida as well, and then Tampa Bay again, and then Nashville to close out those last two preseason games. And then you finally dive into regular season home opener on October 11th against the Ottawa Senators. That's one that folks always have that one circled on their calendars because it's the home opener. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Home opener is always fun. You get to go out there, see the whole roster announce with, the all the fun, smoke show and stuff that they do, the on ice projections. I remember, do they still do Thunderstruck for the intros? I wasn't at opening night this past year.
I don't believe they did.
And that was the one fun thing about the mid 2010s. I remember for a few years there they would play Thunderstruck as they were announcing the roster on opening night, and that was fun. But yeah, it's your first chance to see the team on the ice. Obviously this year, first chance to see guys like Dmitry Orlov, Michael Bunting, maybe others such as Erik Karlsson in a Hurricanes uniform. And yeah, opening night is always a great time. And the Hurricanes have done pretty well on opening nights with Rod Brind'amour as head coach. So, hopefully you can look forward to starting off 1-0 there.
Yes. And then right after, we, of course, have our beginning of the season West Coast road trip. They do this pretty much every year because of the North Carolina State Fair going on, and it's right by PNC Arena. And traffic gets really freaking congested over there. So no surprise that they are, doing that yet again. They are start that on October 14th at LA, and then on the 15th they're at Anaheim, 17th at San Jose, 19th at Seattle, 21st at Colorado, 24th they're back on the East Coast at Tampa Bay, and then they will finally be back home to take on Seattle again on October 26th. So nice little road stretch to start out the season. Again, always, just starting out with the California teams, now going up into Seattle as well. So yeah, that's always going to be fun starting out the season with some Canes after dark.
Yeah, it's interesting. Going on the road to play all three California teams, not quite as intimidating as it would have been several years ago. The Ducks and Sharks have kind of fallen off. The Kings are getting back up there. It'll be interesting to see the Avalanche. Obviously, I think still a really strong team. Kind of fell off a bit last year. How they're doing, 1 year removed from that post Stanley Cup hangover. And the other interesting thing to me is they come back from that road trip and they have a back-to-back at home against Seattle and San Jose after playing both of them on the road. So that'll be it for each of those two teams for their two, because you play 2 games apiece against each team in the Western Conference. Which the one thing that's funny to me there is they end October with a game at Philly, which is their first Metropolitan Division game. So they're going to play both Seattle and San Jose twice before they play a single game in the Metropolitan Division.
Yep, and they only have the 3 Eastern Conference opponents with Ottawa, Tampa, and Philly. They're just knocking out all of their Western Conference opponents first, and then you mentioned the Metro opponent on the 30th with being Philly. Then you also have 2 games up in New York, one at New York Rangers on November 2nd, and then at New York Islanders on November 4th. And we will continue to dive into November, December, and all the way through right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, baseball season is in full swing, and it is a very common occurrence to see myself and or Andrew wearing a baseball team t-shirt, whether it be the Detroit Tigers, Kansas City Royals, or Boston Red Sox. You guys know that we love baseball here, and we love our minor league baseball too. But if you're wanting to place a bet on the big leagues, do so with FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting on the MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over/under to who you think is going to get the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on the MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on, FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Now, getting into November, again, I did mention that you have 2 more Metro Division games to start out in November, and November is going to be a pretty full month. Again, you have the Rangers, you have the Islanders, then you also have Buffalo at home on the 7th, then you're at Florida, then you're at Tampa Bay, then you got Philly again, then you got Pittsburgh, then Edmonton, then Tampa, then Columbus, then Philly, then New York Islanders again. November, there's a couple games that look like they could be a bit easier, but November's looking a bit tough.
Yeah, the one part of November that I would really look forward to is you've got that 5-game homestand in the middle of the month with the Flyers, Penguins, Oilers, Lightning, Blue Jackets. Especially you've got the Oilers the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the Lightning on Black Friday at 8. That should be a really fun one. Lots of people in town. I'm sure that one will be in high demand. Blue Jackets that Sunday of that weekend. I said I always like to go to Canes games around the holidays, so those will be some I'm looking forward to. That'll be a fun weekend in those parts with that Lightning on the 24th and Blue Jackets on the 26th, because then on that Saturday the 25th you've got the NC State UNC football game at Carter Finley Stadium. So definitely going to be some fun times in these parts. That November homestand is definitely a stretch that I'm looking forward to.
Oh yeah, that's really going to be fun for sure. And then you mentioned that homestand there in November. Then in December, they have quite a few road games. They kick off December at home against Buffalo. Then on the 4th, they're on the road at Winnipeg, then at Edmonton, then at Calgary, then at Vancouver, then at Ottawa, then at Detroit, and then they aren't back home again until the 15th of December when they take on the Nashville Predators. So then they're getting part of their Canadian road trip knocked out there at the beginning of December. Then they also have a 3-game homestand in Nashville, like I said, then Washington, then Vegas. Then they're at Pittsburgh. Then they're back home against Nashville. Then they're on the road again against Nashville. Then Montreal. And they're closing out 2023 north of the border at Toronto. And that should be a fun stretch there. Again, you got some more Canes after dark games there. And you got to figure the Metro Division games in there, Pittsburgh and New York Islanders. Those are going to be fun as always. And same with Washington.
Yeah, definitely. You've got some big divisional matchups in this month. Pretty typical to see the Hurricanes on the road for a lot of early and mid-December because there tend to be a lot of concerts at PNC Arena during that time.
Yep.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra often comes to town during that time. Highly recommend if you've never been. But yeah, you've got another couple options for holiday games here. Islanders 2 days before Christmas, Canadians a few days after. One disappointment for me here, no New Year's Eve game. They've had those in the past, especially the ones at home are really fun. One of my favorite games I've ever been to was, I think, New Year's Eve in 2014. They played Montreal at home. We're down 3-0 after 2 periods, ended up coming back to win 5-4 in overtime. That was a really fun night. So that's my only disappointment here with this this early, the 2023 portion of the schedule, this December schedule, is no New Year's Eve game. That is something that I've always enjoyed.
And actually, I just remembered this. You mentioned the concert there in December. Actually, during their West Coast road trip, there's going to be a show at PNC Arena that I will be at, and that is Shania Twain.
Oh,
So,
awesome. I forgot about
that's
that.
going to be fun, of course. And kicking off 2024, they are kicking it off on the road again, carrying over from being up in Toronto on the 30th. Then they are at New York Rangers on January 2nd, then at Washington Capitals on January 5th. Those are going to be some tough games right there. Definitely the January 2nd one as well, simply because of kind of the New Year's hangovers. Everyone, regardless of the team or sport, you're playing on New Year's Day or January 2nd. Folks tend to be a bit sluggish in those games. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. And then they are at home for a good bit of January following then the second half of back-to-back. They were at Washington. Then they have St. Louis, Anaheim, Pittsburgh, LA, Detroit, and Minnesota all at home. Then they are on the road briefly on January 24th up in Boston. Then they're back home on the 25th and 27th, taking on New Jersey and Arizona, respectively. So a lot of home games in January. So if you're wanting to catch a game this season, January is definitely looking like a good place to do it.
Yeah, you've got a 6-game homestand there in January, 8 out of 11 at home in January. So I look for January to be a big month here for the Canes to really bank some points because you've got a lot of these games at home are winnable. Obviously, you've got, is that their first game against New Jersey? Did we figure that out?
Yes.
When we talked about it the first time? Yeah, so I think that's going to be a big game, those head-to-head matchups, because as things stand right now this offseason, I expect the Hurricanes and Devils to be neck and neck for the Metropolitan Division again, for it to come down to the wire. So doing well in those head-to-head matchups, I think, is going to be key. And that's obviously going to be probably the toughest back-to-back of the season, having to go to Boston and then come home and play the Devils. But like I said, a lot of other winnable games this month. You look at teams like the Ducks, Red Wings, Wild, Coyotes at home. You got some other fun matchups like the Penguins. That's always a good one. You can go see all the people in black and gold that flock over from Cary to go to the game. You've got the Kings at home, solid team. So, yeah, I think there's some fun matchups in January, but I think January is going to be a big month for them with all these home games, with some winnable games at home, like I said, to really bank some points and start gearing up for that stretch run in Metropolitan Division race.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And again, you just had to get the shot fired at all the transplants from up north. You obviously see those a lot with the Rangers games as well. And then following that game against Arizona is, of course, the All-Star break. All-Star weekend is February 2nd and 3rd up in Toronto. And that will kick off the month of February. Obviously, we're excited to see which hurricane or hurricanes will be named to the All-Star game. But we got to get through quite a bit of hockey before we get to that. And then we will get into the second half of the season. And that's always really fun. That's when things start heating up. And we will dive into the second half of the season right after this quick break, folks. All right, folks, we're back. And now it's time to dive into the second half of the season. And this, of course, is where things will really start to heat up, especially, like you said, Hurricanes and Devils being pretty neck and neck this coming season for the Metro. I'm expecting that as well. They are continuing their homestand, actually, following All-Star break. You had New Jersey and Arizona on the 25th and 27th, and then on the 6th and 8th, and then 10th, you have Vancouver, Colorado, and then New Jersey again. So those are going to be important games there. To games against New Jersey in fairly quick succession. Then on the road again, Dallas, Arizona, Vegas, and then back home, Chicago, Florida, and Dallas. I try to combine Chicago and Florida there. Then at Buffalo, at Minnesota, at Columbus to close out the month of February. Wait, this is a leap year?
I guess it is.
February 29th. Okay. I didn't realize this was a leap year this year. Or 2024. Yeah, it is a leap year, isn't it?
I don't know if the Hurricanes have any leap day babies on their team. I know I think Cam Ward. Didn't Cam Ward have a leap day birthday? I think I remember that being talked about. But the one thing it's funny about this month is it's like it goes in perfect succession. You've got 6 on the road, 6 at home, and it's like 3-game homestand, 3-game road trip, 3-game homestand, 3-game road trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really great. And honestly, man, I kind of want to know the Hurricanes' record on leap year days. So that'll be fun to do once we get to that in February. Then in the month of March, that's of course going to be a really, really packed one. We're gonna have to rapid fire this one. March 2nd, Winnipeg. March 7th, Montreal. March 9th, at New Jersey. March 10th, Calgary. March 12th, New York Rangers. March 14th, Florida. March 16th, at Toronto. March 17th, at Ottawa. March 19th, at New York Islanders. March 21st, Philadelphia. March 22nd, at Washington. March 24th, Toronto. March 26th, I've lost my place, at Pittsburgh. March 28th, Detroit. March 30th, at Montreal. Holy crap. March is jam-packed. I definitely feel we're going to be seeing the Hurricanes look a bit gassed there somewhat, because there's definitely a few back-to-backs there.
Yeah, March Madness indeed for the Hurricanes. So again, fairly typical of March to be a busy month. Obviously, this is another month where I think, we're really going to be getting into the stretch run of looking at, okay, where are they at in the Metro race? Are they leading? Are they chasing? They've got that other head-to-head, another head-to-head matchup at New Jersey on the 9th. Again, I think those games are going to be really, really important this year. Fun 3-game homestand with the Flames, then the Rangers with more friends from Cary in tow, and then the Panthers. So some opportunity, a little opportunity there to get a few home games in. Again, more of an even mix of home and road. After that December road trip, the Hurricanes don't really have any other lengthy road trips other than, well, we'll get to the last one in a bit here. But yeah, I think this is, again, going to be a month where depth is going to be important. You might see some guys called up from the AHL as guys get banged up, guys get rested a little bit for the playoff run, especially with all of these games. But again, going to be important because I really do think it's going to be neck and neck between the Hurricanes and Devils for the division again.
Yep, I agree 100%. I think that you're definitely going to be seeing some call-ups in March for sure. Probably some in February as well. It really wouldn't surprise me because at that point, you're really into the season. That bump you took in November that just keeps getting aggravated and aggravated. It's going to be worse and worse, come March. So yeah, fully expecting some call-ups there. I agree with you there. And then getting into April, you have a 3-game homestand to start it out. April 4th, Boston, April 5th, Washington, and then the Hurricanes' final home game of the regular season, April 7th against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I feel like quite often the Blue Jackets are either the Hurricanes' first opponent of the season at home or their last opponent of the season at home. It just feels like it's very
Yeah.
often Columbus is like either the first home game or the last home game of the
Well,
year.
they were the home opener last year, weren't
Yeah,
they?
they were.
Yeah.
And I think they
Yeah.
were the year before too.
Yeah. I mean, divisional opponent, play them 4 times. So you're going to see that coming.
Yeah.
They'll play 2 of their season series against Columbus because they will actually end the
Mhm.
regular season as a whole at Columbus.
I
A bit
know.
of a tough one here. They have to end with a 4-game road trip at Boston, at St. Louis, at Chicago, at Columbus. So definitely, if the Hurricanes are going to still need some points in that stretch to wrap up the Metropolitan Division, they're going to have to be road warriors. You look at
Mhm.
last year, they did clinch the division with a regular season ending win at Florida, so we know that they can do it.
Mhm.
But obviously, if they were going into game 82 needing to wrap it up again, Columbus, I'm sure, would love to play spoiler.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know they would. You know they would. Because we've said countless times. Yeah, I've said it with Andrew. I said it by myself. I said it with my old co-host Walker. Metro teams, it does not matter where they are in the standings. They always amp up their intensity just a bit more when they play each other. You could be the first team playing against the last team or vice versa. It doesn't matter. Those games are going to be tough. And yeah, Columbus would absolutely love to play spoiler there. Rankings don't matter in Metro Division games because these teams play super hard against each other. And this is going to be a fun season. One thing, we don't have as many back to backs as we did last year, which is something that I do think will benefit the Hurricanes. And definitely be easier when watching a game for sure, especially when you have the Canes after dark stuff. But that's one big takeaway here is there's not as many back-to-backs. They do have some lengthy road trips for sure, but I do definitely think that not having as many back-to-backs is really going to help them out this year.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the one interesting thing, though, is, with the Hurricanes looking at probably having a 3 goalie setup this year with Frederick Anderson, Antti Ranta, and Pyotr Kochetkov, they're going to be pretty uniquely equipped to handle back-to-backs in that regard, because you really, unless a guy just gets a shutout and is red hot and you just want to roll with him, you really shouldn't have to see a goalie playing back-to-back games this year.
Yeah,
Or on back-to-back days, I mean. Obviously, they're going to start
I know what you
back-to-back
mean.
games.
Yeah, I know what you meant there, but yeah, they definitely are in a unique situation with that, and that's something that's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out. Obviously, we don't really know much of anything right now as far as how they're going to approach that, what everyone's schedules are going to be looking like, and we don't really know as of right now. So we'll obviously talk about that more as the season draws closer. I really don't think we're really going to know much about that really until the season starts. And even then, half the time last season, I would say, oh, I think they're going to go with this person in goal. And they go with the other one. So, I mean, you just don't know with that. And then, of course, this is just the schedules, obviously promo nights have not yet been announced, whether it be a Star Wars night, kids night, whatever. That stuff won't get
Bobblehead
announced.
nights.
What was that?
Bobblehead nights. They brought those back last
They
year.
did. That was one thing I was going to mention of whether or not they do that again this season. We won't really know on that until the season draws closer. I think we'll kind of know that maybe in about September. But yeah, that's obviously something that folks look forward to. I really hope they bring the bobbleheads back because that was freaking cool.
Yeah, I would love to see a Brent Burns bobblehead this year. We do have a
I'm
brief.
surprised they didn't do that, honestly.
Yeah, We do have a brief. Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe like they already had like stuff, drawn up, in advance for it, and they just couldn't get Brent Burns, done for a bobblehead. But man, a Brent Burns bobblehead, that would be awesome. Awesome. And then if they get Eric Carlson, get his like wizard mustache bobblehead. Perfect.
Do like a Brent Burns Wookiee bobblehead for Star Wars night.
Oh my God, yes. They need to hire us. They need to hire us in the marketing department.
That would be nice. We do have a brief update. We talked about Hurricanes development camp. Today is day one of the on-ice sessions. Massimo Rizzo is the Hurricanes prospect that has been heavily rumored to be headed to Philadelphia for Tony DeAngelo, and he is on the ice for day one of development camp. This is from my friend Ryan Henkel, covers the Hurricanes for the Hockey News. So another interesting wrinkle in the whole will they, won't they with the Hurricanes and Tony DeAngelo that's going on right now.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Kind of feel, I mean, yeah, I don't know, how that stuff would necessarily work of, all right, it's not done, so, you're going to go. But also, he's there, and we were already expecting this trade to have happened yesterday, and it hasn't happened, and he's there. So, yeah, that's interesting. The fact that he's there, he was supposed to be the prospect involved in the trade. So we will obviously continue to talk about that Tony DeAngelo trade as more information comes out. We'll talk about that as the week goes on, whether they do, whether they don't, whatever it may be. We'll talk about that, as well as any other moves that the Carolina Hurricanes decide to make. And we will do that in throughout the week. So make sure you're following the show along on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis _96, and Andrew on Twitter at ASchnitt53. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode. And as always, let's go Canes.